Rich.
How are you, buddy?
Buddy, hey, it's good to see you, man. I know you was chasing a bunch of animals as usual last year.
Well, just like you, we spend hundreds of days in the field every year.
Right.
And that doesn't count all the wildlife management side, all the habitat management, just like you're doing down in Georgia.
I know, it seems like we spend more time now doing that side of it as we do hunting.
Oh, well, my
It
greatest...
might be more fun, actually.
It is. My greatest memories come from those hunts.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, I do some really cool adventure hunt, the elk, the moose. I'm getting ready to go to Spain next month to hunt ibex.
No way.
But the ones that are the most memorable are done on my own ground.
That's cool, man. Well, what about some of those hunts, man? Did you have some where, you know, all the way from the trail cam pictures and the food plot you set up to where it come together? Did you have any of that happen last year?
I had the roller coaster of all gears this year. And you know what it's like. You come into the year, you get the velvet footage, you get the trail camera pictures, everything's looking good. So my home farm, we're on year 14 right now, just managing this one tract of ground. So obviously every deer on the property, I have grown, I've documented, I've watched. I mean, we get 1 million trail camera pictures on that property, just on that piece. And there were a couple deer in particular that I wanted to chase. One was a deer called Splitty. I mean, big mainframe 10, but everything split. You know, 2s, 3s, 4s, and a 7.5-year-old deer. The other was a deer I called Rover, 7.5-year-old deer. Okay, now this is Illinois, so as you know, once they hit 4 years old in the Midwest, or even down in Georgia, somebody's chasing them.
Oh, yeah. Somebody else knows about them.
Somebody knows them, somebody's chasing, somebody's got a trail camera picture, so they're setting their strategy up. So Splitty I had dialed in, and he was my #1 deer. EHD comes through. I lose half my deer herd.
Oh, no.
Half my deer herd. So I show up in mid-October, had all the trail cameras out. So I'm just running trail camera, only hunting in the evenings. You know that, right?
Right.
Not pressuring the place. And I pull up to a pond. There's 5 dead deer floating in the pond.
Are you serious?
And Splitty's one of them.
What time of year is this? Is September probably?
This is October.
October. So later in the year, actually.
Later in the year. So he had died. He was probably there a month because, you know, I had run the camera. I put him out in August. Running, and I'm like, my heart broke. Call Fish and Game immediately. Say, hey, we got an issue. I got 5 dead in the pond. Fish and Game comes out. They call their biologist. 179 7/8.
So, giant deer.
But now you're hitting the reset button because all my strategy, everything I built that year, put my stands up, my food plots. So now I'm like, okay. So Rover, 7.5, pull the camera. Okay, he's still alive. 54 days later, I finally kill him.
No way. So from the high to the low, back kind of to the high.
Back to the high. But it's interesting because he was 7.5. We called him Rover because he would pop up on every trail camera.
So he would just all around the farm.
All right. So he would spend a lot of time on the neighbors.
I got you. So the neighbor, was a neighbor after him too, obviously?
2 neighbors.
No way, okay.
But 3 years ago, I said, I've got to compartmentalize this deer because, you know, when they get older, they want to live in a smaller space, less congested with deer. They're less social, even though they're still in that breeding stage. And so I went and I planted 10,000 trees, 22 acres of warm season grasses, and did a big timber stand improvement over the last 3 years to literally relocate this deer's court area.
No way, to try to create the right bedding area and whole environment.
Exactly. And Michael, it worked.
So he took up residence,
He was 50-50 on my neighbors and my place. I moved him to virtually 95% onto my place, and I shrunk his area to 60 acres.
No way. Now, did you plant open areas, or did you?
They were all tillable fields.
All tillable fields. So you went and planted. It inevitably made you a CRP field.
Correct.
Essentially.
Right. So what I did is I planted the grasses first.
You just drill it in or plow it and spread?
So I worked up the grass. I broadcasted old school.
Dude, they work just as good as any.
I had a 4-wheeler with a spreader.
And just worked it up, tilled it up like you plant in old school.
Exactly. Let it grow for 1 year.
Yep.
Burn it off.
Yep.
And then went in with a tree planter and planted, you know, my Norway spruces, my white pines, and I put clusters of oaks and some shrub bushes, cranberry bushes, some apple trees. Now,
so inevitably, you just made a big bedding area.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so that's there. And then I have a creek, and that had 65 acres of timber, and then went in there, selectively logged it, and then did the hinge cutting.
Let it pick up a little bit, hinge it out.
And literally, it shrunk his world down, gave him everything he needed. But how many times do people think 3, 4, 5 years out on one deer?
That's not very rarely. As a matter of fact, I think sometimes what you're saying, you see in so many people starting to do this, and I think that's the biggest blessing, because I think when we were both young, when we were 14, 15 hunting, the last thing we thought we'd have that type of money or resources to buy a piece of land, our dream.
Right.
But then it's funny, I was talking to, I think it was Melissa Bachman yesterday, and I get so frustrated when people throw shade at the farm deer. Oh, it must be easy.
Yeah.
Are you kidding me? Yeah, when it works, probably it does become easy, but the hardest part is all that pre-planning work and sweat equity, not counting the stress and the business and the labor it takes to generate the income to be able to afford the tractor, afford the land, afford the monthlies. And so in reality, I found that my dream was probably one of the hardest things, and that's to own land and to do what you're saying.
Right. And that's always been
have the equipment.
Right, and that's always been my dream, because it always starts with a small piece of ground. I got 20 acres over here, right? And I got a little used tractor. I mean,
small food plot, half-acre food plot, and oats and clover, and you're like,
listen, and what I did on a 60-horse Kubota tractor, I did with an ATV and a spreader, and I did with a chainsaw.
Yeah.
So there's nothing I did that the average guy can't borrow or buy a chainsaw.
Exactly. So you're saying, I've seen you gotten stronger, but you didn't have to go to gym in those summer months, because that chainsaw, and changing out them implements, son.
It is. But to me, that's the greatest memory, because I did something that improved the habitat. I've got more deer on the farm, more turkeys on the farm, right? More wildlife benefits from all of this. But at the same time, I kept them alive to 7.5, which is ancient in the Midwest.
Right.
It's ancient. So, the thrill to me was not standing behind a Boone and Crockett deer when I killed him. In fact, it's kind of sad.
I 100% understand it. It's like it's the end of the book. You close that chapter.
Right. When that bow went off, he's only 31 yards, which is another thing. I made him eat
where
in
exactly
my kill
wanted
zone.
to. Yeah.
Yep. And he came out of the warm season. He did everything he was supposed to do. But when I closed that chapter, it was sad. Like, I was choked up.
I completely get it. I never even understood that emotion, because I'd had some leases, even I've known you a long time. We had some leases, and we'd have some areas we'd kind of be able to kind of provide some supplies for, that we could come trade out some opportunity to kind of hunt on a piece of property. But until I bought a piece and it's yours, and you're, it becomes like the land itself becomes almost like a family member.
Right.
It really does.
Well, you remember the old days when we hunted the Milk River together?
Yeah.
We'd go up on the Buffalo Drop. We would look at, we would find a deer, and we would hunt a deer. That deer didn't have a name. We didn't have a history.
No, he didn't have a name.
Right.
You're exactly a good point. I don't think people make that connection. I mean, people can throw shade at one side or the other. But you're right, hunting Milk River, we'd get up there, and there was never any sad feeling when you were pumped, high-fiving, dancing in the field when you come out and he's laying in the alfalfa, because there wasn't as a personal connection to the deer. Not that you disrespected the deer.
Right.
It was a different feeling.
It was different.
I think I had that hunting my first several years, like the Realtree road trips.
Yeah.
Even Bone Collector, I was just pumped about the deer, but I didn't have really a connection with the deer. I didn't know the deer. Personally, every deer now, it seems like we're, tagging.
We know.
You know them.
Right. And now, obviously, with trail cameras, they're documented. But we're changing wildlife for the better.
Yes.
We're increasing age structure, creating better habitat, and for all the wildlife, because I may on this home farm is 2,000 acres.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, 50% tillable, 50% timber. Okay, holds a lot of deer. We took 3 mature deer off of it.
That's amazing.
So, all the neighbors benefit. Right, because obviously as the age structure comes up, they push out the deer. So I benefit everybody in miles.
Absolutely.
By what we do, and I'm happy for that.
And the more people that adapt that, like you say, it's not that it's all about what a deer scores, but obviously most of the deer that score good represents an older deer, which represents a very healthy herd. So it's kind of a trickle effect, but it's crazy, man. I'd like to say congratulations on Rover, which I will. Yeah. But to be honest with you, I think the congratulations is in what you did to get him to that place, to shoot him at 30 yards and have him that's as exciting of a achievement of the shot itself in that situation.
Absolutely. Well, and all the memories for years, because I have, and we're going to see it on the show this year, I should put it up on social media. I've got thousands of trail camera pictures and videos from age 2
Wow.
Who can say they have documented a deer 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7?
Yeah.
And what you learn from that as a hunter and as a woodsman.
Yes. And I think that's the attachment. Matter of fact, it's a funny story. I never would name my deer. And somebody said, Waddell, everybody names their deer. How do you tell them apart? I said, man, because when I get so emotionally attached, it's like shooting somebody.
Yep.
It's almost like, old Fred. and so my son Mason, who you know well, he come to hunt last year, and I had this sheet, like we all do. I just had it written on a legal pad, and I had like the big 8 with a kicker, the other big 8.
Yeah.
And so
the split G2 buck.
Mason was reading the list. He said, Dad, I know you say it's kind of awkward to get attached to a deer with a name on it. He said, but this is equally probably more awkward. You've got 4 big 8s, the other big 8, the second big 8. How do I know which deer's which? I said, that's a really good point.
Right. Let's start giving them names.
Yeah, you got to almost. You do.
Well, we're pretty blessed to be in this industry, do what we do. And obviously this industry is so small to be able to share this information.
Yep.
Right. To talk to T-Bone, to talk to anybody out here, Lee Lukoski,
Yep.
Don Kiske, and say, how was your season? What are you doing? And how can we improve wildlife? So if we can help pioneer that for the industry, man, I'm in.
Well, Greg, I agree. Good to talk to you all the way from the old Thompson Center days to now, man. We've been doing it a long time.
Yes, sir.
Getting at it, so it's kind of suited.
Listen, we're just getting started.
We are. We're just getting started, baby. Good to talk to you, Greg.
Yep, great to see you.
Right on.